So it's 11 Central. I know everybody's hopping in from all different time zones. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for the first crit of the Changemaker DFA YMCA National Project. For those of you on the call who this is your first time, these are the types of calls that we have throughout the course of the term with the teams to give them feedback on their projects and where they are in their projects. So just an overview for everyone, where everyone is in the project. This is the second check-in call. So for the first 2 weeks, the teams were identifying and immersing themselves in the changemakers space and in their local community to discover insights and just get a foundational knowledge built for where they are. And now for this call, they're going to be presenting how they translated those insights into the directions that they're going and the insights that they found from all of that information that they were able to discover. So today we're going to hear 4 minutes from each team, and they will present where they are and what the directions that they're moving forward in. So we're looking for feedback from the YMCA on this call for each of the teams so that we can hear what you have to say and what you think about where they're going. And so the next step, then what teams are going to be doing next is they're going to be ideating and creating a whole bunch of concepts. They're going to be coming up with a lot of different ideas based off of the narrow directions that they have identified today. So that's where we are, that's where we're going, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the call. So everybody, we're all also operating in this call notes here. So I just put that into the chat, so please log in and follow along. So at the very top, you'll see the agenda and what we're going to be doing with these presentations. The order is WashU, NYU, MSU, UT Austin, and Fordham. So WashU, if you could please queue up your presentation. They'll be sharing their screen. And like I said, each team is going to have 4 minutes for feedback. I will be keeping time on my end, and I'll buzz in whenever you have 1 minute left, just so that you're aware of how that's going to work out. So WashU, could you please, for each of the teams, just introduce yourself? And for YMCA individuals, if this is your first time on the call, when you give feedback, please just introduce yourself and what YMCA you're from. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions before we jump in and get started? Great. Okay. Victor, perfect. Share your screen and kick us off. You have 4 minutes.
Okay. I think it is working properly. Okay. So, yeah, I guess for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Victor. Yeah, I'm from WashU. I'll be here till like 11:20, but then 2 other members will be hopping on to continue the call after. But yeah, this is our synthesis and reframe presentation. Okay, next slide. There we go. So we kind of had 2 user journeys. The first one was kind of thinking about like the teams and how they fit into the GWR YMCA. And I guess that first one with teams had to do with them kind of being able to float around and kind of chill, cause a ruckus, whatever they wanted to do when they get there after school. And it used to be that they would just kind of, yeah, that like the facility would just kind of let them in. But then after a while, they kind of started pushing the teens out, especially the ones that didn't have a membership, just because they were causing a ruckus and a mess and such. And so they pushed them out to the lobby area if they didn't have a membership, and then they pushed them out of like the building if they didn't have a membership, just because I think it was hard for them to figure out a way to deal with teens in the space, especially since they didn't have like a designated area like they seem to do in some other YMCAs. Let's see. Then we also talked to some more like administrative people and kind of their perspective on creating programs for teens. And so we kind of split it kind of into 2 areas that create issues when they're trying to kind of initiate these programs. The first side had to do kind of with like we're not sure if it's like being passionate or like just learning how to connect with teens, kind of from the administrative perspective. And there seems to be a lot of hesitation with dealing with teens in some of our interviews and figuring out how to really empathize with them. Um, and then there seems to be some issues in cultivating initiatives. And just because they talk about how it's like a very bureaucratic system to get programs going, and it's hard sometimes to like get past like all the steps in the process in order to create a program. Um, and yeah, um, so kind of our key insight number one was that we thought there was kind of like a lack of a relationship between teens and YMCA leadership. Um, let's see. Um, Yeah, exactly. Many of the YMCA leaders talked to us like about how it's a difficult group to get into, um, and it matters because kind of just like the relationship between YMCA and leadership and the teams. Yeah, so just areas of improvement for YMCA's outreach teams and adults because teens aren't trusting of the adults very much, and um, yeah, they talked about a lot how it was kind of tough to pilot new programs to like create a deeper bond, which is something they really want to do, but it's just hard to kind of initiate that connection. Um, and oh snap, okay, I'll bust through these very quickly. Okay, so the previous one was kind of about forming like a relationship of trust, and another issue we thought with that was because one of our interviews talked about kind of a turnover rate for the team director position, which made it hard for him to kind of form that initial connection. Then yeah, number two insight was kind of like a top down lack of empathy with the teams, and just kind of figuring out how to create the bond between the two age groups when there's such like a massive age difference between both administrative positions and the 14 to 24-year-old age group. And then the third one was like we just thought there was issues regarding bureaucracy or creation of new programs. Okay, I'm just gonna get to that can we now very quickly. Um, let's see. Yeah, so how can we facilitate the creation of a relationship of trust between these 14 and 24-year-olds and the adults at the YMCA? How can we streamline the process of creation of new programs within the YMCA structure? Because we found that to be kind of hard due to the bureaucracy. And then how can we incentivize teens to share their ideas with what they would like to see in the YMCA, just because that there's that lack of a relationship between the teens and people like the team directors. And then how can we bring the perspective of 14 to 24-year-olds into decisions that are made at an executive level of the YMCA? And yeah, that is kind of a crash landed presentation right there. But yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I hope I
Thank you
made
so
that
much,
1 minute
Victor.
right there.
Yes, so now I'd like to open it up to the YMCA to give feedback. Yeah, if yeah, so YMCA, if anyone has anything, feel free to jump in. But uh, yeah, thank you so much, Victor, for the presentation. A lot of the feedback that we want to talk about is um, I'm really interested in the relationship that you had identifying with the possible new teen pilot programs on campus. I know WashU has a very strong YMCA campus presence, and you're able to have these really cool access to the
Mm-hmm.
different YMCA's in your community. Is there any one of
Yeah.
these how can we's that you're leaning to the most? And if so, I really think like specifying, having a clear person that you're designing for, and when you do a next round of your visions on your how can we's, just make sure that you are specifying a clear user, clear
Mm-hmm.
behavior, and a clear place. This is so that you have a clear understanding of who you're designing for, what you want them to be doing, and where in their life journey that you want that to happen.
Yeah, I'll make sure to take that into account. And yeah, the Wash UMCA is really interesting because it's a lot less of a it's a lot less of like a YMCA facility. It seems more like a YMCA like facilitator, and just it's they create programs like at a relatively like fast rate just because um they seem to create programs a lot faster. I think it's because they just have to get ideas, approved by the students, kind of government here, and it works a lot more quickly. But yeah, it's a really interesting process.
Great. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? We have a few more minutes.
This is Jeff in Indianapolis. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It's fantastic to see this first question. How can we facilitate the creation of relationships of trust between this age group and the adults at the YMCA? We have a tendency in our work as YMCAs to be generalists, not really experts in one particular field. And so I think this is a key question to really take back to us as YMCAs and say how can we connect the right people, those experts that can facilitate those conversations, and how can we move the work forward? So I'm glad to see that question in there. Sometimes as an organization, we're so broad, and we have to be okay with not being the experts and listening to others and say, hey, this is one direction that you can go, and kind of be a middleman for us. So I appreciate that question being in there.
Right. Yeah. We agree because it definitely seems to be sort of like it seems hard for kind of administrative people to connect with these 14 to 24-year-olds sometimes. And yeah, it's definitely important to understand, I think, like the perspectives that these teens have in like their everyday lives for sure.
Mhm.
Hi, this is Christy in North Dakota. One of the things that I feel like might be worth asking for you guys to do some checking on, because we can facilitate creation of all sorts of things. The big challenge that I see, and I hear from a lot of other individuals in my position, is how to communicate best with this age group. Because even like our staff doesn't check their email when they know they have schedules coming out on that and things. So kind of finding the best way to communicate, I think would facilitate a lot of these questions too, once it gets to the YMCA kind of research and implementation side.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for the feedback. That's a very good point.
Yes. Thank you. We have to move on to NYU, but if you have any more feedback for the WashU team, we have the notes doc available, and you're able to write down any feedback that you have in this document in the proper column for each team. I also just want to ask for the rest of the presentations, if everyone could just mute themselves when the teams are presenting so we don't pick up any weird feedback from anyone. So NYU, could you please take it away?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, it's not a full screen necessarily. We can just see this, and then it's like a PowerPoint at the moment.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I don't know what's. Okay, I'm just gonna use
I think it's fine if you can just zoom in if more, but we'll go
that.
with it.
Yeah, I couldn't zoom in. I couldn't even see my screen back then. Sorry about that.
You're fine. Can you try it again?
Yes.
Great. Berta, currently it is just a black screen. That's better. Oh.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi everyone. My name is Alberta. I'm from the NYU team. So I'm just gonna get right into it. A summary of what we've done so far. So we did primary research, which consisted of observational and in-depth interviews. Secondary research on demographics, population by area, similar organizations, statistics, And we also did our synthesis last week. The methods that we used were affinity mapping and user journey mapping. And we are also developing the personas this week and conducting our ideation session as well. So for this project, we see 4 key stakeholders, the staffs from a variety of YMCA in New York City to sort of get an understanding on their perspective on the Y and the programs they offer for youths. We also spoke to an expert. Her name is Kalia, and we call her an expert because she has had a lot of experience and continues to organize and participate in youth programs at the Y in California. We also talk to youths that are members, non-members, former members, and a parent as well. So from our last critique within the DFA in NYU, we got a valuable feedback that addresses that the age group 14 to 24 may be too wide of a range to be categorized to a single youth group. Youths between 14 to 24 have different needs, priorities, lifestyles, and most importantly, they're going through different stages in life. So we decided to categorize the age group to 14 to 17, 18 to 22, and 22 to 24. And the youths that we talk to also come from these different age groups. So this is our user journey map of youths' involvement in the community. What we're trying to capture here is the specific journey youths go through when they were involved in their community. And usually what initiates their involvement is educational requirement for community service, or sometimes it could be that they just want something to do in their free time. The youth then find ways to be involved in their community through their friends, family, online, or through their school. And because they have different skills, interests, and behavior, they will assess if the opportunity suits their interests or if they have the time for it. Basically, this stage is where they are gaining information on the volunteer opportunity. So after they participate, they could either participate just one time and resume their daily life, or it could be an opportunity to continue their participation. I think from this, we think that there is 3 areas of opportunity in this journey, which is the discovery, assessment, and participation. And continued participation. So our first insight is that the facilities and variety of programs offered are the strengths of the Y, but it doesn't necessarily align with what the youths need. We know that the YMCA offers many youth programs, but we don't think that this programs were designed specifically to fit the youth's needs today. Most of the youth program revolve around sports and physical activities and camps, and we think that by providing a variety of programs that addresses the youth's interests today would allow the Y to engage with them better. Our second insight is that there is a disconnect between the YMCA USA core values on youth development that doesn't trickle down to every branch. So from our research with the staff members, it seems that the staff at YMCA in Greater New York are more focused on and connected to their largest existing customer base, which is the senior members. There are youth programs offered, but most of them are located off-site, inside of like public schools due to lack of space. And because of this, the staffs and the off-site youth programs do not really have much interaction and seems to have little involvement with each other. So the key insight number 3 and the 4 after this revolve around communications. Right now, the ways you can discover YMCA's volunteer opportunities is to submit an application online and wait to be contacted, or visit one of the branches and ask the staff for information. Essentially, getting information on the specific youth programs and these volunteer opportunities is the lengthy and time-consuming process for the youths. And for key insights number 4, there's also difficulties in accessing the volunteer opportunities. So slide 7 is more focused on the information they can get online, and the key insight number 4 is more on the accessing and participating in that opportunities. Also, today's youths are busy, and when they want to volunteer and are being redirected to visit a branch, it creates an extra step for them. Youths do spend a lot of time on their phones, but they often discover these volunteer events through their friends or their school. Other than youths in school where the offsite locations are located, youths from the other schools typically won't know about these opportunities. So basically, they usually discover these programs and opportunities through their friends, and they would want to know the specific information about the programs online, and they want to be able to participate with their friends. So from our synthesis, we reframe the problem to these 3 how can we's. The first is how can we lower the barrier for the youths to discover and access volunteer opportunities through the Y? and become active participants in their community. And the second is how can we instill the core values of the YMCA that focuses on youth development to local branches to ensure that these values are exercised in every branch. And the last one is how can we develop holistic programming that supports the youth before, during, and after their critical formative stage. And our next steps is we still have interviews scheduled with the members and parent. We're also going to develop a more in-depth personas and ideation this Saturday, as well as iterate our ideas. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Alberta. Does anyone have anything they'd like to start off with?
Yes, this is Thomas from Silicon Valley. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Well, a couple things. First of all, just I really like that you broke out the age range into different groups that are more specific, because I really do think that the development of youth varies greatly based on those groups that you kind of lumped them into. And so I thought that was a really great method there. I'm curious to know, one of the insights that you shared was that the programs that are offered at the New York City YMCAs aren't aligned necessarily with the interests of teens. And so I'm curious to know what if any interests are you aware of? What programs are teens looking for that the Y isn't offering? So where could the Y move to be more aligned with the interest of teens?
I think it's a little bit of like both, because from the students that we talked to, they were like, when we asked them about their volunteering experience, some of them are like, oh, I volunteered and to work with animals because I like them, or I volunteered in women in STEM because I'm interested in that, or I'm interested in mental health, so I'm volunteering at the NYU Peer Health Exchange to help students with similar issues. So I think there is an opportunity here to branch out that is outside of sports and physical activities. But then we're also aware that YMCA already offers a lot of these like variety of programs. It's just that not a lot of students and youths know about them. Yeah. Does that answer your
For
question?
just one more comment before we jump on to MSU. And then again, if you have any other comments, please feel free to write them in the notes doc.
Can I add something? Hi all, this is Alden. I work at DFA National. Excuse me. I want to sort of jump off. I agree. I think it was really smart and interesting that you all are sort of breaking down that age frame from 14 to 24 years old, because it is sort of a huge span, and each of those sort of different age groups that you have, I think, are going to be learning about these opportunities in different way, and also communicating in different ways and at a different pace. So I think that breakdown is really smart. I also think I'm interested in you all sort of pursuing this instinct to also like interview parents too. I think you said you had talked to at least one parent. And some of the work that we've done with the YMCA already, I think is really interesting and sort of generative, is thinking about, especially with youth, not thinking of them as individual units, but members of a family. And thinking about the way that you engage youth members from the YMCA audience as really thinking about their interests and how they're engaging, but also like how they take that home and all of the other potential sort of users of the YMCA that they're interacting with sort of in their family unit, whether it be their parents or their siblings or sort of extended to their friends, and really thinking about that sort of individual is not just an individual, but sort of a collective unit, and how do you sort of communicate and share information with sort of those bigger unit pods or something. So I'd be interested in you all continuing to sort of think through that line.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
Alden.
so much.
Thank you, Alberta. MSU, could you please share your screen? And I'm looking forward to your presentation.
All right, let me get this set up real quick. I think I can. All right. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Great. All right. So we're MSU, and so we try to develop some user journeys. We have two different things we were kind of focusing on. We weren't able to really dive deep into it. We got a majority of our survey responses, and we haven't really got to synthesize as much as we would like to. But from what we do have, so we have a user journey for the executives at our local YMCA. And from talking with them, it kind of seemed like there's two different aspects that really drive what kind of programs that they have at their Y. They stress the autonomous nature of the Ys and the fact that each one is always kind of dependent upon the community as well as the funding that they get. And so one thing that they try to do is they try to gauge the community and the community needs. And so they have these input sessions. And I think the last one that they had was approximately last year. So it was kind of interesting to hear that they do have these meetings. And as far as our other empathy map, we try to look at college age YMCA goers. We were able to do a survey in one of our halls at MSU, but most of the participants were these college age. So we decided to create a little empathy map of them since we could have a little bit of a better picture. And so we kind of got an idea of how it sort of felt like with as far as the goers that are college age, it's either they knew about the YMCA and they were engaged at a younger age, probably like when they were kids, or they started because they wanted to have a job there. But then there was this divide between those who have maybe heard of the Y, but they have no idea about what the Y does. Um, and so this kind of led into our insights. And so this is our first insight is like some of the students, they've heard of the YMCA, but they have no knowledge of the organization. And because we got a lot of responses, it was like, I don't know much about it. They'd like more information. And we asked like what would make them more appealing, but they're just pretty much there. They felt like they were in the dark. And so, but another part of it too is with our local YMCA executives because we wanted to work with our local Y. And so we sat down with them and they kind of came up with 3 areas that we could help them, which would be they have like a feeding program that they want more youth in. There's a fitness program that they could get more youth in, but they also have this program called Y Achievers, and that we could possibly work with them. So we were looking into that, and we want to try to help both areas if we can. And so, as far as the Y as well, we've noticed that there's a lot of diversity in the Y, and so we were thinking possibly of a way of highlighting that because the Y has much diversity, so we just want to kind of look at that. And pretty much, we also, from talking with the local executives and from just our general surveying, we noticed that the people will join the Y when they're younger, but then they stop coming as they get older. But then our local Y also, as their age increases, they might come back. So we kind of boiled it down into 4 how can we's. How can we help the Y outreach better to college students? How can we highlight the Y's current and historical diversity? How can we shift the Y's current inclusive behaviors from a marketing platform to something more tactile? Because we're thinking maybe more than an advertising campaign. Like, what is something we could physically make? And how can we encourage Lansing area teens to change their health habits from attending a Y feeding or fitness program to help with the local executives? And that's it.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have anything they'd like to start off with? Well, I was really intrigued by the possible relationship with your local YMCA and the connection that you've been making with the executives at your local branch. I think having them being a part of the conversation and helping them inform which areas of need to look at is a really exciting opportunity that a lot of, for you, your particular situation. So definitely take advantage of that, but explore it on your own term and like let the insights that you're gathering continue to drive the direction that you move forward in. I think I'm really excited by the WISE current and historical diversity tangent possibility as a how can we. I think like that just is honoring the current reflection and demographic of that particular YMCA and looking for new ways to make that population more aware of, in regards to your first one, the YMCA and what they stand for and how they can get involved. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to ask? We have about 2 more minutes for feedback.
Sure, this is Jeff in Indianapolis again. I think you guys are on to a great start when it comes to engaging your university with your local YMCAs as partners. The campus-wide movement across the country has changed a little bit. It's gone from student organization-based YMCAs to really how can the universities help drive a stronger model in the community with the universities. And so you have a lot of opportunity there, and it's really the connection between once young people are finishing up high school, how can we make sure they know that there's still a Y community as they transition into a university setting. And so I like to hear the direction that you're going here.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment? As we go through, if you think of anything you'd like to share out with the teams, again, please add that into the notes doc. Brandon, do you have any other particular questions or any other type of feedback? You have a few more seconds here. Anything that you found that was most interesting or you want a particular feedback from?
I guess as far as with the if we were to look more into like the college students, should we take into consideration those that are not going into college? Would that be helpful to look at those possibly as like a juxtaposition?
I think definitely looking at the different demographics of the possible people who could be engaging with the YMCA, including non-college goers, is an avenue to explore. If primarily, though, the YMCA you're working with is college students, that will be a bulk of the people that would be engaging with it, since it's just by virtue of being a campus Y. It's more likely, I would assume, that college students would be engaging at that particular location. But you can also use that population and that demographic as a model to understand how might the YMCA on campus engage with people who are not engaged with the YMCA as students, but are also on campus, and seeing if you can derive any insights from their experiences.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and reach out if you have any questions about that too. UT Austin, you are up next. Could you please queue up your presentation?
Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So hi, I'm Ivana, and I'm here representing the UT Austin team. So first of all, after conducting various interviews, we were able to create a persona based on our research or on our interview findings. So meet Sydney. She's a high school student who is interested in government and hanging out with her friends, and she runs her youth and government club in her school. So let's take a look at Sydney's journey. So she's overwhelmed by her duties as president of her youth and government club. And one of the things she does is she reaches out to the Y to ask if they can provide an advisor to help mentor her school legislative branch. And when the Y is unable to provide her with an advisor, she reaches out to local firms to see if there's anyone that is available to volunteer as an advisor, but she's discouraged when she does not hear back from them or they are really busy. Some of the quotes we got that highlight Sydney's pain points are that the adults will have better luck recruiting advisors than I would, and that people are more likely to listen to adults than they do to teenagers. So after conducting our secondary research and our interviews and creating our persona, we gather like all the information to look for trends and patterns. And as we did, we discovered this first insight that there are different perspectives on change makers, on the definition of change makers. And although many students and staff members, or like every student and staff member, share the same definition of change makers, the program values something differently. And one of the things we wanted to mention is the highlighter part, that right now, like the youth, the adolescents are really passionate about creating legislation. And after they create that legislation, they're making an impact. So we wanted to like turn that around and make cultivate change makers who are really, really passionate about making an impact, and therefore they are changing the legislation. So one of the quotes we got were about like what is a change maker, and this is how we came up to that insight. So I know it's like a lot for me to explain right now, but you can all like take a look at it better after. So our first insight is connected to our second insight, that it's about the lack of community and human dimension to the curriculum. And basically, we gathered that there is a lack of human-centered and community-centered curriculum design. So like students, and this matters a lot because if the first thing they do in terms of research, instead of like just researching about legislation in the computer, if they go to the community and meet these people, like real human beings who are affected by these issues, these experiences could like actually spark that change maker in them, and they're gonna feel much more passionate and connected to the cause because they already know someone that it's like being impacted by the legislation that they will eventually draft. And this is one of the quotes we gathered. And
One moment, Ivana.
Okay, let's go to the third insight. There are many barriers that disempower youth, and one of our interviews talked a lot about administrative and financial barriers. And our youth that we interviewed, they also told about how they wanted like validation from adults, because sometimes they are not taken seriously, and they use the word "get pat on the head," the phrase. And so going into our design opportunities, we would like to explore the wise recruiting process for advisors at district and local level, into a more secure form of funding, changing the cultural perceptions of young people through the Y, and go over possible ways to enrich the curriculum with a more human-centered process or practice. And those are our how can we's. I think, yeah.
Thank you, Ivana. I was really intrigued and very your second one really resonated with me. I think you made a very clear case for why the curriculum development and the way that things are taught, or the opportunities that students or young people could have with this program could lead to them becoming change makers. But I'd like to open it up to the rest of the community, the YMCA. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
I'm with the YMCA of Austin. I thought that was really interesting, kind of starting the process with them understanding who would be affected by this. I think it would definitely give a different lens to their engagement overall in the program, and really create that springboard from the beginning to initiate their engagement. That seems like a huge aha moment that none of us ever thought about. So I really like that idea and the concept of how we're recruiting our advisors. Yeah, I really like that.
Exactly. Anyone else would like to share anything? Ivana, do you have a direction that you feel in your How Can We's that resonates with you the most?
I really like the human center like design for the curriculum.
Hmm.
I think like in terms of change making, that's something that could also be scalable to the national like scope of change making.
Hmm.
Not only about like changing our local, about impacting our local YMCA, but also like it could be expanded. And I think that's something that we enjoy the most when we were like synthesizing. I don't know. That's what we like the most.
No, that's great. Thank
Hi,
you.
this is Glory from DFA National. I'd like to add on to that. I also think like the human-centered curriculum and adding that opportunity for the YMCA program participants would be so cool. And I think that would build off of like how do we validate these efforts of children or the teenagers that are in the program, and essentially like create some evidence for them to show to the YMCA and prove that like these are the voices of the community that we're hearing. This is how we do it. So I think there's a lot of potential for these ideas of teaching empathy and the curriculum, and using that to validate either youth efforts or validate community needs to the YMCA leaders.
Thanks, Lori. Okay, you have, there's about another minute here for feedback if anyone else would like to share anything. In the meantime, Fordham, could you please queue up your presentation on your end so we're ready to pass the ball over to you? Anyone? I thought I heard someone saying something. No. Is someone?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
hello.
Hello?
Oh, hi. This is Caitlin from Fordham.
Oh, okay.
I'm just sorry. I'm just trying to. I have to add some extension to Chrome real quick.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
cool.
Well, how you doing that?
I can add one more thing for UT Austin in terms of the final how can we. I do think that it can be a lot more specific. So narrowing down as a specific age range of is it like children or adolescents that you're trying to. Is it the YMCA leadership or the broader community that you to build stronger relationships with your target users? So I think once you specify those particular people that you might be designing for, would be a good place to jump off for ideation.
Great. Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much. Fordham, you're up.
Am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So these are the people we've spoken to since Immerse. This is our affinity map. This is our team working on our affinity map. So our first insight was that socialization is an important motivator for team participation. We found that a lot of young people are too scared to join programs on their own, and oftentimes a lot of people just need a friend to like go to a new workout program or something like that. And it's also extremely important for youth to be represented in programs, which we found that with the YMCA's in New York City that they kind of cater towards an older demographic rather than younger people. So younger people are a little bit discouraged in terms of like wanting to join these exercise programs. Another insight we had was that before teens can be change makers, they need to feel safe and comfortable to express themselves. We found that some teens feel kind of demotivated based off of messages about youth activism and youth voices in the media. Media and adults even downplay the importance of youth voices and sensationalize issues to the point where it's too overwhelming to care, which makes it difficult to motivate teens to become change makers. Our third insight was that the Y's vague messaging makes people confused as to what the Y does and what it stands for. We found that if people don't know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, it's kind of hard to get people involved, especially when it comes to teens. We found that teens need a clear understanding in order of like what your organization does in order to care about programs and issues that are being promoted. So we did 2 personas. One was a college student who goes to the Y, and he kind of wants to be able to go to the gym with a friend, but also feels a little bit discouraged by the number of older people that are at the exercise programs. This is his journey map, which illustrates that point. Then we have Megan, who's a youth program coordinator who works at the Y. She's passionate about helping teens prepare for college and giving them space to be advocates for changes. And she has her frustrations with, she doesn't feel that she has the flexibility to meet the needs of the young people that she works with. And then our how can we statements. So we have about 4. So we have how can we leverage peer-to-peer relationships to get young people more involved? How can we create functioning integrated age group spaces? This is kind of like talking about how we might be able to, should we combine like these programs that are for older people and younger people, or should they be sort of like these separate things? And then we have how can we help the Y improve and clarify its messaging? And finally, how can we help change the messages surrounding youth activism in the media and give youth the confidence to express themselves? And that's it.
That was awesome. You're under time, so I was wondering if you could go walk down the user journey of your persona real quick. I think that would just be helpful for me to understand a little bit more of the first one.
The first one.
Ben's
so
the user journey. Could you explain a little bit more?
Oh, the user journey.
Yeah. So his motive. Yeah, this one.
So basically, I think the main insight from this is like that. I mean, it's just like following his, I guess, decision to go to the Y, and his, I guess, I don't know, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay, yeah, if you could go back to your how can we's then. Sorry, I just wanted to double check that slide real fast. So I appreciate the clear connections between your insights and how cleanly packaged and nicely packaged they were, and how simple they were to communicate and to understand, and then also how you weave them into the persona that you created. I think these how can we also build on them, but I also think that they could be more specified. I know that's something Gloria has been saying, but the clearer direction you know you're about to get into when you're ideating, the easier it will be for you to know exactly what's going on. So when it comes to this, I find really like striking that insight of the media or just the higher powers when you're a youngster trying to voice like you don't feel heard, and that can be something that really dismays a lot of people from even engaging with the process at a young age. So I think that's a very interesting way. I also really appreciated the creation of, and so in order to feel comfortable to be able to express yourself, that got me thinking about a lot of different avenues that could happen. But I would like to now open it up to the YMCA. Do you have, we'd love to hear your feedback for Fordham, please.
Can I add something?
Go for it.
Yeah, I just also want to connect. I think it's one of the key insights that you all just sort of presented out about where are the spaces that you sort of feel comfortable expressing themselves, and that need to feel comfortable in order to sort of be creative and honest. I think that also ties back into the first team presenting, talking about this how do we build trust too, and how do we create these spaces where these youth change makers that we're talking to feel actually that they can share some of their insights and their desires and their wants and needs. And this is all to say, and I think it applies to all of the teams. I think as you all are going through this process and starting to talk to your different audience members, to keep coming back to them, right? And keep building those relationships with people that you're engaging even early on. I think as you sort of keep talking with them and building that relationship, it's just going to be more fruitful, and you're really living through this suggestion to create spaces where they feel comfortable. You're building that trust as a way to gain sort of more insightful and honed insights from all of your potential users.
Thank you.
Any YMCA?
Yeah, this is Christy in North Dakota again. One of the things, a couple of them have talked about, like getting a pat on the head or validating feelings, things like that. I know as an adult, I'm not entirely sure what that expectation is, you know? So it would be helpful, at least in my life, if that was something that you were able to clarify with the participants that you're talking to, you know, because I know as a YMCA, we work really hard to try and validate feelings and provide those safe spaces, but it's pretty clear that we're falling short. So if there was a way to ask those participants, okay, you feel like you got a pat on the head, you feel like you're not being validated, what does that look like to you? To give us an idea of, you know, what that expectation is.
All right, we'll definitely look into that. It's an interesting point.
Anyone else? Is there a how can we that you are leaning towards?
I don't think so right now. We're going to, I think, vote as a studio on which one that we're most interested in on Thursday before we start ideating on them. But I think probably interested about like giving youth the confidence to express themselves. And I think this peer-to-peer relationship thing is also pretty interesting, but I don't know, we'll see.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to it.
Quickly add a point, jumping off of Christy's feedback, is that I really love that you guys had personas to compare with youth and one from. It would be really interesting if you explored a little bit more the journey map for that youth program to see how those two parts work together and match up or don't match up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think finding and identifying those incongruencies that Christy was talking about are going to allow you to have that open conversation to identify really what the youth are wanting and how best the YMCA can learn to, or just be vulnerable and open to hearing what the young people are looking for, but also giving the young people the opportunity and some of the language that they might not know of how to express themselves and what they're feeling could also potentially be something to further consider. Well, thank you so much, everyone. So for the wrapping this call up, if anyone has any additional feedback, please take a moment to add your comments, questions, concerns in the document that we put into the chat. In the final thoughts here too, in the beginning of this note stock in the agenda, under all of the notes that Glory has been taking throughout this, the next steps for this project are that the teams are going to be entering the ideate and build portion of the design process. And so what does that mean? So just a quick overview for ideate and build. So now that you've narrowed down the challenge DFA teams, you're going to be generating as many ideas as possible. The how can we, I like to use it as a lens that you look through to ideate. So you really want to be focused and narrow and have a direction, and then you're coming up with all these possible places and ways that pass to get you to that place. So some of the next things that you are going to be doing is really generating as many ideas as possible. 50 plus is a very achievable goal for all of you to come up with. So you'll use your how can we's, and as a guide, I encourage you to specify and refine, and we'll be putting more information in the Slack about that. There are some resources in the notes doc as well. There's a lot of ideation methods, so ways that you can come up with different concepts. One that is really helpful that could get your brain start thinking is using a term called ideation via analogies. So how can you design something as if it were a different type of experience? So how could you make a grocery store visit as exciting as ordering from Postmates? Or how can you make it so that it's like playing a game at Chuck E. Cheese? I know these are kind of silly things, but that's what ideation is for. It's you're going to let your creative juices flow. There's no bad ideas. You're really just looking up of how to use your imagination and your ideas in your brains and bounce everything off each other to create possible concepts, and then reel yourself back in and you'll refocus and present those out. So thank you so much to all of the YMCA guests and representatives and the Changemaker cohort who were able to attend the call today and provide us with their insights and feedback. DFA teams, please continue to reach out to the YMCA. And YMCA, if you have anything you'd like to share with the teams, please either email me to share out or feel free to share things directly in the YMCA Changemaker Slack channel that we have for this project. I'm looking forward to our next crit with the YMCA, I think the 31st, so in 4 weeks from now, where we'll be able to have the teams present more refined concepts. But in 2 weeks, the teams will have a huddle with DFA National, which is similar to this, but without the YMCA Changemakers, and that'll take place Tuesday, the 17th at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern Time. So that is the call. Thank you so much for joining this crit. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, I'll be on the call for a little bit after. But thank you so much for your time, teams. Great job with all the work that you're doing. Continue to find those insights, and I'm looking forward to the ideation. This is the part I love, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any extra questions for those of you still on the call? Aileen, I hope you're feeling better. Paul and Brandon, do you have anything? Candace, thanks for joining us. Glory, thanks. Go enjoy the nice Rhode Island weather. Oh, yeah, Brandon and Paul. Yeah, sorry.
We did want to check in with you.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what's that? Oh, we asked you to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, so we just wanted to check in and make sure everything is going okay with your team. We wanted to reiterate that, like, right now, I think your biggest focus should be putting in the work for the national project and putting aside sort of like thinking about the studio for a little while, because we know that the project takes up a lot of time. We don't want to stress you out. Do you have any, so for Paula, do you have any questions about the team norming worksheet or the team canvas that I sent over?
No. Yeah, I think just like the hardest thing, because we haven't really been able to come together and like talk about like our interviews that we had, so that's why it was really hard to kind of go through that last like presentation, because it's kind of just based off stuff that we've had.
Yeah, I mean, I think the presentation that you gave was really great overall. Like, it didn't seem like piece by piece at all. It felt really well put together. I thought it was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, so I'm excited to go back. Yeah, because we don't have our next group meeting until like 3:10. But I was gonna see if anyone would be willing to kind of like have a little bit like of a longer meeting, so we can kind of work on like that team worksheet, and then also kind of just
go over our interviews and then kind of doing a quick reframe to like make sure we're kind of having a stronger future.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Do you know? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I think
Go ahead.
so the norming worksheet and the Canvas are essentially the same thing. I think one is just a little bit more handheld than the other. So you can just maybe like take a look at the questions and pick one of those worksheets that might elicit better responses from your team. But it would be really helpful in just getting everyone on the page, setting expectations, and having who's able to contribute, who isn't able to contribute as much, and like how to balance that work.
Okay. Yeah, because I think definitely just laying those ground, just like how much is expected, I think will help. Because this feels like it's just like kind of segmented, like because some people can put in more, but having that idea, because I feel like we can make a really strong thing. We just need everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and getting on that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ross, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, getting everybody to align on those by using the team canvas or the team contract or the teaming workshop that Glory provided. Those will allow you to really just communicate those expectations, be honest with where you all are and how much you can do for this project and what you want it to be, and then set a roadmap for getting there. And a lot of that too is it's a relationship. It's a team. You're all working together towards a common goal. So you're like, hey, this is what works for me. This is what doesn't work for me. But like, this is what we all have to do. And so it's a lot of responsibility for people to take up and to hold everybody accountable in a way that you all agree and understand that you want to move forward with and to achieve those goals together. And it evolves. And so like having these team retros too is another helpful topic that you can start to adopt in your team culture of just checking in regularly with everybody after you set these. You're like, okay, like here's how we're going to move forward. Are we still good? Like a week out, 2 weeks out, like at our next team meeting, like setting up some time to be like, hey, does everyone still align? And taking that purposeful moment to just check in with everybody is a really great way to feel validated on your team and to make sure that everyone wants to be there and is able to contribute what happens as you move forward. Because I know like with spring break, like things like midterms, it's just a messy time for everybody. So like how can you best structure your work around those things that are just happening in everybody's lives? And that's helpful to consider moving forward.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. That helps.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty fortunate because everyone, like, we're all pretty good friends. So we did team bonding outside. So, like, it's very nice that we have, like, that good kind of, like, positivity. But, yeah, I think it's just making sure like, our meetings are more focused towards, like, our goals.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to share out, like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I think that goes along the lines of, like, what does it mean to be a team lead? I like to say being a team lead is more about team building, where, like, yes, your goal is to get the project done, but the project won't get done if your team isn't aligned or doesn't feel supported. And so really it's more about, like, creating an environment where the members of your team feel validated and feel capable and providing that, like, direction in terms of, like, okay, this is our next meeting, what do we do next? And, like,
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be like you're not like managing anybody per se. It's more like you're creating that space where everyone can cooperate.
Yeah, that's something that we wanted to talk about, like between like me, Paul, and Rita is like, what is the team lead? How do they differ from any other position? Because we've had that issue on a lot of our past projects. There's a blurry boundary because we don't really. The team lead is more like a member, but we don't really. It's really. So it'd be helpful to have that idea. So that really helps.
Yeah. And this is one. Oh, go ahead.
No, Ross, you go.
So this is yeah. But this I was gonna say, like you say, blurry boundaries is like why we keep saying specify your how can we's, so you can like move forward with your clear direction and everyone knows where you're going. And so,
Yeah.
like, how can you have like a clear team lead role expectation so that all of your team members have the best like project experience? When I was a team lead, I was really focused on like just how can I make my team's life easier. Like that was what I felt was part of my responsibility as a team lead, and that was like making sure agendas were prepped and that I like had set around some time before meetings to clearly communicate with everyone of like how I'm going to communicate things out to them. Like this is how I do agendas. Does anyone have any comments on it? Cool. And like give like it's a feedback loop. So doing what you can to make it easier for everybody so that you come in, you're clear, you're good, you're golden, and you move on. Just making decisions is great. Okay, Lori, what were you gonna say?
I don't know what I was gonna say. But if
Cool.
yeah, I think we don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it's like super busy. Also,
Yeah.
you're on spring break. Definitely like go, get your sleep and take a break. Enjoy your spring break.
Oh yeah. Don't do any work on spring break unless you absolutely have to for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Breaks are breaks. Like we're not asking you to do anything crazy.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
if
miss
you
spring
have
break.
any more questions about team lead or you want some more specific.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you have something you
Ready.
put together, if you want us to look at it, just send it over or something
Okay.
too, and we can give you like some feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise, really great job today. I think,
Yeah.
like I said before, like it seemed very well put together. I think.
No, I
Ready.
think you impressed a lot of YMCA people, so great work.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Ready. I'm gonna hop off now, but have a good
Okay.
rest
Okay.
of the day.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.